What's good, everyone? This week, a new MCU film came out in Thunderbolts with an asterisk. A very fascinating asterisk. Um, this will be a spoiler review. If you have not seen it, you have been warned. I will just say, though, this is a good movie. I do recommend it. And I do think it is one of the better projects the MCU has put out in a while. And it feels like the MCU finally has direction and connectivity again, where I think Brave New World from a few months back took a few steps in the right direction with that, but it kind of felt like it existed just to tie up loose ends, where it's like, okay, we're addressing the Eternals again, we're mentioning like sort of like what's going on with the Avengers, going back to the Incredible Hulk, tying up loose ends there, but it felt like it existed to tie up loose ends, not because it was really the story they wanted to tell or something that was needed to be told. Whereas this movie feels like, you're bringing all these characters together from phase 4 in a story that makes sense, that builds on the characters, that sells the illusion that there was always a plan, where, MCU first 3 phases, it's just like this masterpiece where it's like they took all these different pieces from all around and culminated in Avengers Infinity War and Endgame, and they never really had a plan for it. They just kind of improvised and made something great. And this is kind of going back to that, where I don't think there was a plan, but they're just like, okay, we'll take this character here and here and put them together in Thunderbolts, and it really worked. And then that combined with the really interesting post-credits scene, which we'll talk about later, tells us where the characters are going next, where we'll see them again, and feels like we're going to have actual direction with the MCU again, which is very exciting. This also goes back to classic MCU and the way that Marvel has been very segmented and going into more niche genres, like, ooh, we're going to do a show about witches, and vast majority of the MCU fan base does not care about that, is not interested in that. But we got all these people over here in this one little corner that this is their first or one of few experiences with Marvel, because I like this quirky witch show. And it's like Marvel does stuff like that, just all this random stuff that doesn't really fit in. This really feels like it goes back to that sort of classic accessible Marvel feeling. And it also isn't relying on gimmicks like No Way Home or Multiverse of Madness or Deadpool and Wolverine, where it's like, ooh, look, cameo, I remember that, I've seen that before, I know that guy, which that works, it's fun, I like it, but there's only so far you can take that, only so many times you can do it, and that's something I'm worried about with Doomsday. But this movie just feels like an actual story that holds up on its own merits. So let's talk about it. And this movie is very much so a follow-up of Black Widow. Really, this is like Yelena's movie. Yelena is at the core of it. It's like Yelena and Bob, maybe third character Red Guardian, and then the rest sort of feel like side characters, which is fine. I like that. And they're really good spice characters in there, where you get John Walker as U.S. agent. Really liked seeing him again. I thought he was a standout. You get Ghost from Ant-Man and the Wasp, which I liked that character in that movie. As Ghost, I was very disappointed. He's one of the coolest characters in Iron Man Armored Adventures. That's what I know him from.
Nice outfit.
Nice place. The roaches make you feel at home?
And I thought he was so cool in that, and when I found that he's going to be in the MCU and they did it just completely differently, I was disappointed, but the character itself works in that movie. She's definitely cooler in this, or like the rest of the characters, just kind of punch and shoot mercenary type character, but with ghost powers. But she is definitely more of just an extra member of the team. Doesn't really have much of an arc other than like everyone else. She's goes from being a bad guy to kind of a hero by the end. And then Taskmaster was someone they really, really botched in Black Widow, and I'm like, there's no way they can save Taskmaster in this movie, but maybe they can do better. Shot dead in the first 10 minutes This is so disappointing. I remember seeing the trailers and being like, why isn't Taskmaster in this more? It's only in like the one scene, which is all over the marketing, all over the posters and everything else. I'm like, why isn't she in the trailers more? She dies immediately. I'm a little disappointed by it, but they also didn't do the character right to begin with, so it's, they figured not really something worth pursuing, and I don't blame them for that. I don't think any of the audience really wanted that either. Now, at the core of the story, like I said, you have Yelena, and she's just like depressed. And this movie explores like these themes of depression and sadness and suicidalness. Is a very heavy movie. It has a very sort of dark tone, and I'll talk more about some issues with the tone and the bad later. But overall, I found it a very interesting thematic exploration of depression. But you have like this band of losers who have all just been failures at life and have done horrible things and hate themselves. And Yelena feels the same way, but sort of through her relationship with Bob and seeing someone who sort of has it even worse, is able to sort of overcome her self-doubts and hatred and help her team come together in that way. And as they are all sort of this group of losers that all feel the same way, they're able to connect with each other and sort of move past their struggles. And I thought that emotional core is really what made this movie, whereas so many other more recent MCU movies are just like big CGI spectacle and cringe humor. This one actually has a point to it that makes it worth watching. And you get the big spectacle, and really there isn't a whole lot of that until the third act. Most of it's just very basic punch and shoot action, which I really liked. I was kind of expecting a little bit more from that. There weren't like really any standout action scenes in my opinion. They were just kind of there for the sake of having action, and that's fine. I thought they were good enough. I was certainly entertained, but really my big takeaway from this movie wasn't the action or spectacle, except for the one scene where they're all trying to take out Sentry, and he's just standing there just taking it and nothing's happening. I thought that was an awesome scene. Beyond that, like, this is something you go to for the characters, which again, not something you've gotten from Marvel in a while, and I really appreciate that. And this does build out the MCU. I'm going to go into a little more detail on that. You get Julia Louis-Dreyfus's character, Contessa de Fontaine. She's like 6 different names. I don't think she even says all of them in this. She had more in Falcon and Winter Soldier, I think. You have seen her show up in like post-credit scenes here and there in the Phase 4 and 5 projects. Like she recruits U.S. Agent, she recruits Yelena. And something I do want to say, Bucky Barnes is not in this as much as you'd think. And he's not as much of a focus as you think, which I kind of appreciate, because this is a movie about side characters, and while he always has been kind of a side character, he's been there the longest. He's had, like, you already know who he is. You want to spend time with these other newer characters, and I think they made the right decision not making him the focus. But yeah, they set it up in Brave New World that he was like running for Congress, and you're like, what? Why are they doing it? Why is he doing that? How did they elect a war criminal? That's weird. And they don't really get into that in this either. He's just kind of doing his thing, I guess. I don't know. But that's going on. You got, at the end, Valentina Contessa de Fontaine, whatever her name is, sort of tricks the Thunderbolts into becoming the new Avengers. That's what the asterisk means, is that they're Avengers now, which is really interesting. There are interesting places that can go, and I don't know if they're going to go all the places they can with it, because the next thing we'll see them in, they're going to be having a big multiversal war in space or something. And so I don't know if that's even going to matter. Like, we have this team here, and they're going to be there, and that's cool, but are we going to explore this group of loser criminals being the world's mightiest heroes? Like, and how the world responds to that? I think that's interesting, but I don't know if we're actually going to be able to get to see that. And then you get that really interesting post-credit scene that the movie itself spoiled, because I'm paying attention to the credits, and it says Fantastic Four theme composed by Michael Giacchino. I'm like, oh, well, I'm going to choose Fantastic Four. And you get to see the new Avengers up in Avengers Tower in their cool new Avengers costumes, which I do like. I thought they looked I don't know, a little bit silly. Like they looked comic booky, which is a good thing, but it didn't really fit in this movie. Again, tonal issues. We'll get into that later. But I did think they looked cool. And then you have this really stupid gag that I didn't honestly thought was really cringe. Where I mean, it's kind of funny, but Red Guardian has like this knockoff Avengers with a Z, like a racing suit thing, tracksuit. I thought that was silly, but whatever. And like there's like this space crisis going on, space crisis, and you see the Fantastic Four ship heading to Earth. So gonna have a crossover between universes soon. So gets the hype for Fantastic Four, gives us some direction to the MCU, seeing how it's all starting to connect. So getting excited for that. But with all that said, I do want to get into some more negative stuff, which my biggest two problems with this movie are the tonal issues and the genre cliches, where thankfully Marvel seems to have learned their lesson. They're not undercutting any dramatic tension with a cringe joke, but they're still telling cringe jokes. And I, people like to bash on Marvel humor now, and I don't 100% understand it. It's very retroactive to me, where like, oh, it was never good. It still holds up. It just, the newer movies, it's not as sharp as it used to be, and there's still plenty of like fun banters, good jokes in this movie. But there's this new character like Mel. She's like the embodiment of cringe in this movie. Everything she said was, I did not care for that character. And Red Guardian, just like in Black Widow, he was a little bit too goofy, a little too over the top. Funny. He's sort of like part of like the emotional heart of this movie, where like with his relationship with Yelena, all that was great, but he's a little too much. But thankfully, he does get to in on the action some more in this movie, whereas in Black Widow it's like, oh, he has like one fight scene in it, and then there's another one where you think he's gonna fight someone and then he doesn't, or you don't really get to see it. And in this, he gets like more action scenes. He gets to be the cool Red Guardian and not just goofy Red Guardian. So there's that. And then the genre cliches, where this movie has some very original style to it, an original sort of set of characters to it. I've seen evil Superman clones before. I've seen superheroes being manufactured and turning on their creators before. I've seen manipulative villains trying to get our heroes to fight each other before. I've seen super soldiers punching their way through bad guys before. So a lot of that just, was tried and true. I was entertained by it, but I've seen it before. And I think there is a bit of a side to it where they know we've seen it before, where you only get to see Sentry for like one scene, and it's a really cool scene, but I think they know that evil Superman is a bit played out, and he very quickly turns into the Void, which is very cool. You get some really interesting visuals with that, like going to people's minds. But that's another trope that Marvel exclusively seems to be doing, and just so often lately, where it started with WandaVision, and it was really good in that. Honestly, I think it worked. It was very creative at the time, and they did it again in Loki, I'm pretty sure. I'm like, okay, cool. They do it in Moon Knight, which I think the one where they did it best. It was the most emotional. And then they did it in Echo, the worst one, where Echo uses like her made-up, random, undefined magical powers to give Kingpin a trauma attack. I thought that was so stupid. They just keep doing this trope they've done over and over, where the main characters like magically go into their own mind or something like that, face physical manifestations of their trauma in order to overcome it. And again, it worked the first couple times. It was creative, but they keep doing it, and they did it again this time, and they did it fine. Like, it played out well. It worked for the emotional beats of the movie. I was just so disappointed to see it again, and that they couldn't think of something better to do with their story. And yeah, it worked. It brought out the desired emotions. It was cool seeing more backstory parts for some of these characters. Some of them I would like to see more of, like Ghost. Like, it's implied that each character has like goes through this throughout the movie, but they just kind of skip over everyone but Yelena and Bob. It's like, I would have, if we're gonna do this, I would have liked to have seen some backstory from some of these other characters that we don't know as well, but we never got that. And it gets into like some trippy visuals where I really like the set design on it, where like you're in memories but it follows like dream logic, and it's kind of plays out like a stage, like a set, where when characters travel too far, where you see something in your memory, and like the background gets blurry. Like in this, like when characters walk away from something and they can't remember, like it turns into a wall, but like blends in with the scenery. I thought that was really cool. I thought it was really well visualized. So that was all pretty cool. And yeah, just the way like the sentry like turns people into shadows, like I thought that was also really cool too. So there was definitely some creative design going on here, something you don't see anywhere else. So I appreciated that for sure. So overall, I did think, while there were disappointing elements, that Thunderbolts was a good MCU movie. They're sort of returning to form. They're getting back on track. There are definitely familiar elements, tonal issues, familiar issues here, but it's getting better. I enjoyed the movie, enjoyed the characters. I do recommend this movie. I give it a whole 7 out of 10. It's a good movie. But yeah, I think that about covers all my thoughts on Thunderbolts. Thank you so much for watching.